Here is the rewritten documentary script. Documentary script, rewritten. When I look at my husband today, I still see the young man I fell in love with when we were both 20. But at the same time, I know how much time has passed, and I feel so thankful for all those years we have shared together. A friend of mine once told me a story that made me laugh. Someone asked her, "How did you manage to stay married for so long?" And she simply said, "By not getting divorced." I found that very funny. But for me, it really comes down to commitment. There is something genuinely beautiful about that, about choosing one person and deciding that you will spend the rest of your life with them. That is the goal. That is what you truly want. And I think that is a really wonderful thing. You are not the same person you were on your wedding day. Who you are physically, emotionally, and spiritually is very different 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later. If you are as fortunate as I have been, married 38 years, the real key is the ability to grow, to change, to move forward together, and to support each other through all of it. I love that about a long marriage. I will share a little secret with you, the shared bathroom. That is a very good thing. That is where you talk through everything. That is where you unwind after the day. You laugh together. In the mornings, you figure out your plans. Where are you going? What are you doing? I will meet you there. That is the lighthearted answer, but it is actually quite true. And beyond that, I genuinely believe it comes down to shared values. You have to be able to talk to each other about the things that are changing in your life and also about the things that are staying the same. You're always working side by side for something bigger than yourselves. I once read an interview where someone said that most people do not truly know what they want. But if you can figure that out, you can take real steps toward making it happen. And I realized I had always felt uncomfortable even allowing myself to want anything. It always felt like I already had more than enough. I had my health, my family, my children, my parents. Wanting something more felt almost wrong to me. I kept asking myself, why is it so hard for me to want something? So I decided to play a little game with myself. I asked, what do I actually want? And honestly, I could not answer it. That frightened me. What eventually happened was that I started playing a game that actors use, the what-if game. What if I allowed myself to want something? What would that even look like? And the answer that came to me was music. That realization came together with meeting an incredible songwriter named Cara Dia, someone I had crossed paths with years earlier through the musical Chicago. We were not involved at the same time, but when I met her, she asked me directly, "What is it you want to do?" I have told this story many times, and I will keep telling it, because what she did for me was truly remarkable. I told her, "Cara, I would love to write songs the way you do, but I just cannot." She asked, "Why not?" I said, "Because I do not play an instrument. I cannot read music." And she said, "Neither can I, but do you have something you want to say?" That stopped me completely. Yes, I had something I wanted to say. She looked at me and said, "Then I will write your first songs with you." And she did. That moment opened the entire world of songwriting to me. What makes this project so deeply personal is that it captures different stages of a woman's life, specifically my life and the life of my co-writer, Amy Watch. The stories come only from things that I have lived through, that my closest friends have lived through, that so many women I know have experienced firsthand. I am someone who lives a public life, but I'm also a very private person. So for me, this has meant opening up in ways I have never really done before. And sometimes in music, you're able to say things that would be much harder to express out loud in a conversation. Why now? Because I feel I've only just reached the point where I am truly comfortable speaking in my own voice. It has taken a long time to get here. I always felt caught between two worlds, my mother's generation, which was very traditional, and this generation of remarkable women who were out there fighting hard for women's rights. I was somewhere in the middle, deeply interested in what these women ahead of me were doing, and equally connected to my mother's values. For a long time, I was balancing both of those worlds. Now I finally feel like I can simply be myself and share the things that truly matter to me. There's a quote that became very important to me while making this album. It was probably the single quote that influenced me most. It came from the sculptor Michelangelo. I kept it pinned to my bulletin board for a very long time. Someone had asked him how he was able to carve such beautiful statues out of enormous blocks of marble. And he said, I see the angel in the marble, and I carve until I set him free. That stayed with me deeply because it felt like the perfect description of what it means to grow into yourself, to become a full person, to become a woman. We carry so many different identities throughout our lives. You were a young girl, then a determined teenager, then a driven worker, a good wife, a good mother, a good friend. All those things are real and true. I do not want to lose any of them. But there are labels that come from the outside. This album was more of an exploration of what lies underneath all of those identities, the part of me that holds all of those different women together. There's a song on the album called The Heart He Handed Down. It is about my father and his journey, escaping from Bulgaria, escaping from a labor camp, and eventually making his way by ship to New York, where he left the ship and built his life in America. When I think about who he was, I am truly in awe. The song is called The Heart He Handed Down because he carried so much strength and so much courage, and he was able to picture for himself a life worth living. I thought, how wonderful would it be if Chad came in and sang harmonies on this song? And he did. He has such a beautiful, gentle tone in his voice. He is singing harmonies on that track, and I love what he brought to it. I would work with him again in a heartbeat. Maybe we would even try a rap together. Maybe we could do a version of Eminem's Cleaning Out My Closet. It actually took me 2 full months to learn that song. And going through that process gave me a whole new respect for how hip-hop is written, the different rhythms, the different tempos. There were also things in the lyrics I simply did not understand at first, so I had to look them up. I'm not going to tell you what they were. It was like reading Shakespeare to me, literally like learning a completely different language. And I approached it the same way you would approach Shakespeare, 2 lines at a time, slowly building until I could put the whole song together. It was so much fun. I learned it because a film required it, a movie called Boy Genius. When I read that in the script, I thought, really, you want me to learn this entire song? But I'm so glad I did. When you carry a baby the way I did, and you bring that life into the world and then raise and nurture that child. I nursed both of my children. You develop a deep sense of wonder for what your body is capable of, what it does for you and what it does for others. That feeling was extraordinary. Even as your body changes and shifts and looks different over time, you carry this genuine appreciation for everything it has done. I remember being truly amazed by it. And then when I was diagnosed and went through a bilateral mastectomy, my relationship with my body shifted into something very different. These parts of me that had served me so beautifully were gone. I am very grateful for what modern medicine offers today, reconstruction, implants, because in my mother's generation, if you had breast cancer, that was it. There was nothing available. You were left trying to find ways to fill out your shape again. It was like living with a shadow of yourself. It was a strange and meaningful experience to look at my body in that new way, to understand what was missing, but also to witness what my body could still do to help me heal, to keep me healthy. I found myself thinking, I have just been through something enormous, and yet my body is still working for me. It still wants me to be well. It still wants me to be here. That is truly extraordinary to me. So I now like to say I have finally gone Hollywood, and yes, I have some implants. And they're pretty good. I have a very strong faith. When things were at their hardest, I had to truly believe that I would be okay. I had a vision of what that looked like for me, and that will remain something I keep private. But I believe it is so important to hold onto the belief that things will turn out all right. There's so many moments when life feels completely out of your hands, and that can be terrifying. I simply had to hold on to the faith that things would be okay. My mother used to crochet. She could create the most beautiful things, and all of it was made from nothing more than a length of string. That is what my life feels like to me now. Every experience I've had, every moment that brought me to where I am today, is like another stitch, another loop of the hook pulling through the cotton, forming the pattern, building piece by piece into a blanket. And I feel like I can finally see more of that blanket now than I ever could before.